with concentration camps looming in the United States, here's what queer people are doing. Yes, I said concentration camps. You can MAGA. We are getting a go bag ready. We are getting all of our documents ready. So driver's license, birth certificate, social security card, passport. Now, if you have to revert your passport and your documents to previously said gender identities that you were born with, do so. I'm allowed to do so with my driver's license that says X on it in the state that I'm in. I'm going Monday to revert that to my gender assigned at birth. So, the next step, we're going to have a go bag with shoes, clothes for 7 days, dehydrated food, think astronaut food for 7 days. We're going to have $1,000 cash or prepaid credit card on hand. And this is just for the emergency. This isn't for permanency. This is for a week of getting by off the grid. We're going to have anything ready for the pets that we're taking with us. So put some cat litter in your trunk. Put some cat food or dog food in your trunk. Make sure there's a leash there. Make sure you have everything ready for everything that you're taking with you. Make sure your medication is available and in extra stock. So stock up on it. Ask your doctor for a 3-month supply at one time. Keep your gas tank full. Have all of this stuff available and ready to go in a moment's notice for every single person in your family. You do not need a passport to get into Canada or Mexico. You just need your documents. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't have a passport ready to go. Have a beautiful day and stay safe, my transgender family. All MAGA hate on this video will be deleted and blocked. So please boost this video with positive thoughts for other queer people and what you are doing to make sure that you are safe. And being
Good morning, everyone. I hope you guys are all having a great morning. I've been having some technical issue amongst worried about the LGBTQ concentration camps. Are they coming? Nah, I don't think so. But I think it's interesting that they have a plan. Good morning, Kim. So I'm having all kinds of problems. I'm still having issues. Like everything I hear is double. I don't know what I did wrong this morning, but clearly it was something, and I'm not really sure how to fix it. So hopefully you guys can hear me. I'm just going to take out my headpiece because it's doubling everything, and I'm used to having it, but I will get by. I don't know what happened this morning. I was having all kinds of problems. I'm really not sure where it all started, but I had everything ready. I've been up since 3 o'clock in the morning, everything loaded, everything ready to go. I even had time to readjust my camera and do some other things I've been planning on doing but haven't had time. And then, sure enough, I start the show and press that little button. It says, "Oh, you've revoked your permission to use your camera and audio." And I'm like, "No, I didn't. I didn't do anything. I didn't even touch anything. I don't know exactly what happened." And I still don't know what happened. So we'll find out. Good morning, Dottie. Good morning, Linda. Good morning, Jay. And yeah, so Dottie, yes, what a video to start your morning. And Dottie, thank you. I'm glad you guys don't have an echo. Yeah, it's probably just something here on my end, but I had to play that video for you guys this morning because I thought it was kind of funny. I don't know why members of the LGBTQ community feel like they're being attacked. Should we pay for transgender surgery as a taxpayer? No. Should we allow children to be mutilated? No. Should we allow parents to give permission for their children to take puberty blockers? Children, not adults. And the answer is no. That is not coming out against the LGBT community. It is called personal interest. It's called child abuse. It is called that the taxpayer dollars shouldn't pay for gender affirming surgery. End of story. Trump is not taking away the rights of gay people. That's not going to happen. He's not taking away the rights of anyone. So, I don't see what the big deal is, quite honestly. Good morning, Rob. Good morning. Oh, Linda sounds fine. I'm glad to hear that. And so lots to talk about today. I just wanted to reassure anyone out there that there are not going to be LGBTQ concentration camps. Everybody just needs to calm down just a little bit. No one's rights are being taken away. Nothing is going to happen to anyone. Everyone's perfectly safe. Trust me, everyone's perfectly safe. And I think that was, I'm not even going to go back to that video. Today is President's Day. Happy President's Day. Some of you may have heard that, of course, Donald Trump's birthday. We're going to see maybe that's going to be a legal holiday going forward. That would be kind of interesting when we have Pulaski Day and Columbus Day and all these other President's Day. Why not a Donald Trump President Day? I think it sounds pretty great to me. Good morning, Tammy Jerry Hoover. Robert says the big deal is they expect superior rights. And, Robert, that's exactly right. I've always said on the show many times over, I don't care how any people live their lives. I just don't care. I don't care about your sexuality. That is up to you. That's on you. Whatever you do behind your closed doors doesn't matter to me. I don't care. If I see two guys, two girls walking down the street holding hands, I don't even pay attention. I really could care less. But when you tell me that I have to pay attention, that, hey, look at me, look at my sexuality here on display for the world to see, then I start having a problem with it. And when it affects children, I have a really big problem with it. But I don't want to see straight people out acting crazy on the streets either, being overly affectionate in public. I don't want to see any of that. That stuff it belongs behind closed doors. End of story. And I don't want anyone to push their narrative on me, no matter what the narrative is. When it comes to sexuality, guess what? Keep it at home. Straight people and gay people, just keep it at home. None of us want to see that stuff. Oh, Jay says, fear narrative to try and further divide everyone. Jay, that's absolutely right. And people who would believe that we're going to set up LGBTQ concentration camps where they needed to go bag. I don't know where these people are getting their news. It is absolute fear mongering from the far, far, far left, the far two folks on the fringe left. Those are the ones doing the fear mongering. And it is absolutely insanity. It's insanity. Not going to happen. Either way, lots to talk about today. We're going to talk about Elon Musk and will the announcement of his 13th child, will it be his undoing? Was he in a legitimate relationship? Was it an accident? Is it entrapment? I'm seeing a lot of information. I don't want to accuse anyone of trapping a man, a billionaire at that, the world's wealthiest man, into a pregnancy situation, but there's certainly a lot of information out there to look at, and we are definitely going to be looking at it. I'm really wondering if we are going to be at war with Europe. I really wonder how this is all going to unfold. We're certainly going to get to that. Britain talking about sending Europe, UK sending British troops over to Ukraine. We have different meetings going on today to discuss the peace situation in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. And we're really at odds with Europe, who, we'll talk about it when we get to it. Are they our ally or are they not? And I'm going to say they're not and really never were. So we'll get to that. Canada. Is Canada going to be our 51st state? I don't know. I really don't know. Normally I would say no, that'll never happen. And we know what Canadians think about that at hockey games. But I don't know. I want to show you guys why it would be such a strategic move for us to somehow passively acquire Canada. We certainly can't take it by force. We wouldn't want to do that to our Canadian neighbors. I love Canada. I love Canadians. So we've got to be very careful there, of course, with the verbiage. But we're definitely going to get to that. We're going to talk about censorship in Europe. We're going to talk about people going to jail because I don't see anybody going to jail. Don't see anyone go to jail. Jay says, who cares, to be honest? And I'm assuming you're talking about Elon Musk. Well, people do care. I don't care personally. I could care less. If we cared about moral value, quite honestly, we would have never elected Donald Trump. He is not the most moral person. And I'm okay with saying that. I love Donald Trump. But, he has self-admittedly talked about his affairs and things that he's done in his life. And we're not electing him for his personal values, are we? We're electing him for his policies. So we'll certainly get into that. Gold, Rand Paul, he wants us to, we're doing all these audits. Why not audit the gold stash? Do we even have any gold? I've been hearing this story for, gosh, as far back as I knew what news was, that it's all just a big sham, that we really don't even have any gold. That the alleged Fort Knox, if you go there, there's nothing there. Nothing there. And let's see. Robert says it's been an economic trade war with Europe for many decades. Good morning, Allison. Good to see you this morning, Allison. So we're going to talk about that. Articles of impeachment against some of these liberal judges trying to block Trump's executive orders. We touched base on that the other day, but that's moving forward. Trump, he has some solutions for eggs. We'll get to that, of course. We've been killing chickens. Maybe that wasn't the best solution. Maybe killing millions and millions of chickens isn't the solution. Can you imagine that? Man, NBC, they've been really pushing some narratives lately. So we'll talk about that and how they're pushing the narrative that deporting, people who are here in our country illegally is going to just destroy this country, and how it's wrong, and how instead we should be employing people who are here illegally, which, by the way, it's against the law to employ people who are here, who are not United States citizens and don't have proper work authorization. And Jay says, if you're looking for a perfect moral person, you'll be looking a long time. I agree, Jay. I actually couldn't possibly agree more. And it's an argument I've had with people for a really long time now over morality and where does morality get us and who exactly is moral, because I don't know a lot of those folks. Michelle, good morning, Michelle. And so those are some of the things I want to talk about. There's so much to talk about. It's like, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to start. I can't wait for, some of these things to unfold every day. Every day. It's like there's just so much information out there. This morning I'm looking, I'm like, gosh, Doge, they've saved us $100 billion now. If you look at the debt clock, that's where they're at, $100 billion. With, of course, Musk's team saying we're going to be at a quadrillion. We're going to be in the quadrillions at some point. That's how much money they're going to save us, quadrillions. And so let's just jump into Elon Musk while we're talking about Doge. This story, and I don't think it's any coincidence that the story came out on Valentine's Day. I mean, a spurned lover, of course, is going to speak out on Valentine's Day. And some of you have probably already heard there was a woman that has come forward. She claimed that she came forward because of media pressure, who the media is and how they pressured her. And I don't know. And I'm going to try to be as careful with this conversation as I can, because I don't want to say that the woman's lying. I don't know her. I don't know her situation, but there's a lot of information coming out, and I'm not going to pick sides between her and Elon Musk and who's right, because I don't know either one of them. It's all hearsay at this point. And Elon Musk hasn't really given any type of official statement yet. He did post a couple of X's. I don't know what you call them now. We used to call them tweets. Now we call them X's. I don't really know. But we made a couple posts on X that we'll get into. But so this woman, her name is Ashley St. Clair. She released an official statement on Valentine's Day that stated that, yes, I'm not going to read the exact statement, but she said, yes, she did have a baby, a little boy, 5 months ago. Elon Musk is the father. And she said that she regretted to have to inform the public in this way, but that she felt like she was pressured by a journalist or journalists to reveal the truth. And I find that I'm going to try to be careful not to choose sides. I find that hard to believe. And I'm not going to say that journalists didn't know, but how would a journalist know? Unless someone leaked the information, how would anyone know? I follow the news and pretty much every story that's out there. I've never heard of this situation, never heard of Elon Musk being in any kind of relationship. And did journalists know? I mean, who leaked the information? I highly doubt it was Elon Musk, but I'm not saying he's an angel either. But the situation goes is that Ashley St. Clair, she used to be a writer for the Babylon Bee, which we all, I think, love. And that publication, it's satire, of course. They post some funny stuff. Never heard of her. I've never heard of her. And she was a writer. She used to be with Turning Point at one point, Turning Point USA, which she allegedly stepped down over something that she posted that was inappropriate. So she stepped down from that role. Now, the story is that I feel it's kind of funny. I feel like a tabloid reporter right now. The story, and this is relevant because the folks on the left are going to do everything they can to bash Elon Musk and to get rid of the Department of Government Efficiency. And, this is a new story. And trust me, they're going to be running with it today. Absolutely running with it. And the story is that Ashley St. Clair had met Elon Musk at some functions. I mean, that would be obvious if she worked for the Babylon Bee and for Turning Point. Those are both probably, especially Turning Point, places where you might come across someone like Elon Musk. And then she claims that he started sending her messages through her private messages over X. She called it slipped into her DMs, which I despise that term. And it was a meme he sent her, something along those lines. And then she claims that they, chatted back and forth on their private messages on X. And then he asked her, hey, do you ever come to Austin? Do you ever come to San Francisco? And somehow, of course, she found her way to San Francisco. She went to the headquarters for Tesla and somehow ended up meeting him in Rhode Island. And at this point, they claim that is when the romance began. I have a feeling that's also when the romance ended. But, there's no other information about how long of a relationship they had. Was it just this situation in Rhode Island? Was there something more to it? Was it a longer term relationship? I do not know. I haven't heard anything additional about that. And then it turns out that she ended up becoming pregnant, of course, and says that Elon Musk is the father. And she alleges that Elon Musk, not him, but his attorney, advised her to not ever tell anyone that it was his child, that they paid for her to have an apartment, a very expensive, nice apartment, by the way, which one would expect if you're, involved with the world's wealthiest man, of course. And as a matter of fact, her apartment sounded nicer than the little mini house that he lives in. So allegedly they set her up with an apartment in New York City and provided for her and her unborn child at the time. And she claims that, oh, poor her, she hasn't left her apartment. I don't know how long. Her 5-month-old son has never even seen the outdoors. He's never walked down the street and she can't go outside. She's been paranoid. So it's like, okay, is there something going on right now, Jay? I don't know what it is. You guys are saying that it's freezing. Let me look. I mean, everything seems fine on my end. Maybe you guys should try X. Facebook does some crazy stuff sometimes. I would say to try X because everything on my end looks fine. I don't have any way to test it. So I don't know what's happening right now. But if you're on Facebook, you can go over to X and see if it's any better there. I don't know. I'm glad you guys do watch and I'm glad that you joined me, but I don't know why people join from Facebook because I know people like the commenting on Facebook, but it is the single worst platform you could ever use to watch any conservative show. Any conservative show. Um, Thank you, Linda. Okay, and thank you, Allison, switching to YouTube. I'm telling you, it's Facebook. They do this all the time, especially now that we found out that Mark Zuckerberg is really not our friend. He's actually using millions of dollars against Trump for these lawsuits against Trump. And thank you, Pam, for letting me know that everything's good on X. So if you're watching the show and you're on Facebook, please switch to either YouTube, tabs on tap on YouTube. You can switch to X under @Tabitha Hassell on X. And please, I'm not telling you can't watch on Facebook because trust me, I'm happy to have you here. But Facebook is the single worst place to watch this show or any conservative show for that matter, because from what I understand, they are back at it with their algorithms. Zuckerberg has shown his true self once again, going against putting millions of dollars into a fund to go against Donald Trump. So we just can't trust it. But anyway, so for those of you who didn't hear what I was talking about with Elon Musk, I'm not going to go back and Glenn, yeah, if you're on Facebook, go over to X or YouTube. It's freezing on Facebook, but it's not freezing on YouTube and it's not freezing on X. It is something specifically with Facebook. So I apologize for that because most people do watch the show from Facebook, which again is the single worst place you can watch it, is to use Facebook. So if any of you guys can hear me, if you're there, switch on over to X, switch to YouTube. Otherwise, I'm going to carry on about Elon Musk and his 13th baby and why I'm questioning the entrapment aspect. So I don't know how much you guys heard of what I was saying, but basically the woman's name is Ashley St. Clair. She alleges that she became pregnant 5 months, or she had her baby 5 months ago. The baby, a little boy, is now 5 months old. Again, she met Elon Musk at some functions, likely Turning Point, because she worked for Turning Point at one time. He started sending her private messages, a meme, and then it kind of went from there. She met him at the Tesla headquarters in San Francisco. She went on some type of vacation or trip to Rhode Island where they met. Somehow down the line, she became pregnant, and now she claims that she doesn't have a relationship with Elon Musk, and that she was told by his attorney to keep everything quiet and not to reveal that she was having his baby and so on. And again, just hearsay, we don't know his side. We heard her side. Do we know it's true? I don't know. But what I thought was interesting, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is two parts. A, like I said earlier, is that we know the left is going to run with this. They're going to attack Elon Musk with everything they have. Really, I should make 3 points. Second point being that I wouldn't be surprised at all if she was paid a very significant amount of money to come out and tell this story. And I'm not saying that Elon's not at fault. I don't know his story. He has not said a word. So we just don't know. And I think it's very plausible to believe that it is his child. He has said many times that, he is very interested in populating the world because of the fact that births have gone down, which is true. And Jay said he's rich, enough said. And he's eccentric. People are eccentric sometimes. Anyway, so the third reason why I'm bringing this up today is because Elon Musk himself posted, it's the only post I've seen him make, but he made a post on X that was a prior text conversation that Ashley St. Clair had with a man back in the year 2020 that talked about Elon Musk. And clearly it seemed that she had aspirations to potentially have a child with him. And she talked at that time in these text messages about Elon having at that time 7 children and how he went through women very quickly and so on. And so it was made to seem that she already had a preconceived notion that she would like to somehow get together with him, have a child by him. And guess what? Here we are in 2025, 5 years later, and it's happened. And the person she was talking to is kind of like, aren't you reaching, really, is this really what you want to do? And again, here we are. And Robert says, why attack Elon? Just acting like a Democrat and an NBA player. Well, I don't think Elon is a Democrat. And there's a lot of people out there who have illegitimate children. Good morning, Annette and Margie. Glad the feed's better now, but you're not going to get too far on Facebook. I'm actually thinking about not even having this show on Facebook anymore. That might be somewhere down the road when I get Rumble set up. But man, Facebook, they cause me so many problems just about every single day. X, the feed's always fine. YouTube, who I also don't like, but their feed's always fine. So if you're on Facebook, please switch over to X or to YouTube. Probably X, because I probably won't last on YouTube much longer. But anyway, I'm turning this into a very long story because I've had all these technical issues in the in-between, or Facebook, I should say, has had technical issues. Either way, I like what the Department of Government Efficiency is doing. I could care less if Elon Musk has 20 children by 20 different women. I just don't care. I really don't care. Do you care? Does he the model of Christian values? No, he's not. But are any of us? And I'll go back to say something I've said in the past. There was a time that a friend of mine and I were not even friends anymore because of this, and it was a situation where she was talking about other people and things that people were doing, And I was looking at her because here she is, a single woman who is quite promiscuous. And she's complaining and talking about other people and how they're sinners because she was, a very Christian person. And I explained to her that, she's a Christian, yet she is with different men, multiple men all the time. That is not Christian behavior to be promiscuous in the way that she was, not Christian behavior. And therefore, she was judging these other people for some actions of their own, which was also not Christian behavior. And the way I saw it and the way I explained it to her is, who says that one sin is any greater than the other? We have all sinned. And maybe Elon Musk having children, by these different women, a lot of people would consider that to be sinning, to be, obviously it is sinning because he's not married to these women. But who isn't guilty of sin, quite honestly? There's very few people who are not guilty of it. And I don't feel like we're here to judge people. There will be other people who will disagree with me and say, yes, we are to judge and we are to be righteous according to the Bible. And for me personally, I don't judge. Look at Donald Trump. I love Donald Trump because of his policies, not because him, the person. He has fully admitted that he's had affairs. He has not lived a Christian life. And, in all aspects, he is, I think, born again Christian now after the attempted assassination on his life. I believe he is a born again Christian. However, he has not lived a perfect life. And I am perfectly fine. I'm perfectly fine with that. Because guess what? If you were to not hire anyone for a job because of their moral values, or if you're not to buy products from people because of their moral values, if you weren't going to elect anyone because of moral values, you'd be sitting alone in an island is where you would be. So we have to be careful. And Jay says only one person was free of sin. That is correct. Allison, Congresswoman Omar married her brother. Allison, I just saw some validation on that story the other day where she finally admitted that she did marry her brother. I don't know if you guys saw that. I almost talked about it on Friday, but I didn't. And Omar finally came out and said, yes, I did marry my brother and I would do it again. I would do anything I could I can't remember if she wanted citizenship for him. I believe she did. And so she's admitted to doing such a thing. And Ken says, Matthew 7, ye shall not judge, or you too will be judged in the same manner you are judging. God has never once came down, tapped me on the shoulder, and said, hey, Ken, I need your help to judge Tabitha. Well, thank you, Ken. I appreciate you not judging me. I am pretty much living a saintly life these days because I never leave the house other than to work, and all I do is work pretty much around the clock. But I judge absolutely no one, absolutely no one, and nor should you. We cannot judge people, but we know that the left is going to come after Elon with everything they have because you know why? They can't get him on anything else. The only thing they have to talk about is these children that he has with different women, which, by the way, a good portion of these children were through IVF, not through romantic relationships. It is said that there were some women that he knew in his life who were single, who didn't have, were not in a relationship, and he used IVF to contribute. And these women now have children, desperately wanted and needed children. So all 13 of these children were not, did not come out of a affair or a relationship type situation. His first wife, he had 6 of these kids with. Then he had 3 with the one woman, which some of them were through IVF. Anyway, it is not my job to worry about Elon Musk's personal life and how many children he has or how he came about these children. But I can guarantee you in the coming days, the left is going to drag him through the mud over all of this. You're going to see all these statements come out. And the way I feel about it is this woman, Ashley St. Clair, if she worked for Turning Point, if she worked for the Babylon Bee, she's allegedly a conservative. I feel like she may have been paid by some left wingers to out this story. I mean, maybe a very significant price. And she even said in her statement that she was trying to work out a deal with Elon Musk to take care of her and her child. So I hate to say it, and I hate to be that woman that calls out other women for getting pregnant for a payout. I don't want to be that person. And I'm not saying that's what she did, but we know it happens, and let's just call it for what it is. Here we have the world's wealthiest man, and all of a sudden he has another child. We'll just leave it at that. And Joe, couldn't find you on X. I am at Tabitha Hassell, my name, at Tabitha Hassell on X. And Jay says, does anyone really pay attention to the left anyway, except a minority of viewers? No, but the people, well, we don't, but they pay attention to each other. And these people have lost their minds. And what I really worry about, Jay, and about them coming after Elon Musk and the way that they're going to. Right now, Elon Musk is their number one enemy. It's not Donald Trump. He's their number two enemy. Elon Musk is their number one enemy. And I can probably promise you about 99.9% with my life, not my whole life, but part of it, that all of these people who are going to be called out for all the kickbacks they received, all the illegal money they've received, those people are putting some money into a fund and they are turning over every single rock trying to get dirt on Elon Musk. They've already done that to Trump. We already know what's under all of those rocks for Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton spent billions of dollars to comb through every single dirty thing that Trump could have. And you know what? It's all been aired. We know all there is about Donald Trump. There is nothing left to learn. And we still elected him. We still did because we like his policies. Now, here we go with Elon Musk. He is now their number one enemy. They have not yet overturned all of the rocks. They're going to. But let's keep in mind that Elon Musk he's a civilian. Yes, he's working for the government, but he is a civilian. And Ken, by the way, if you see Ken Lee comment on the comment line, Ken Lee was a Marine One pilot, and he did fly Kennedy. And was it George Bush, Ken? Let's see what your comment says. I was Marine One pilot at HMX-1, and President Reagan was my charge, met him, talked to him many times, enough times to know that his favorite hockey team was the St. Louis Blues. His greatness was delegating. He knew he didn't know everything. Trump, having the most successful businessman in the past century in Elon Musk, is smart. I agree, Ken. And he hasn't been hired to be our moral leader. He is there to uncover fraud, and he is. Couldn't have said it better, Ken Lee. And by the way, for anyone listening, I'm working. I'm going to take some time out to get Ken Lee on the show. And Reagan, thank you, Ken. Ken was the Marine One pilot for both Reagan and George Bush. Bush HW. And I bet Ken has a lot of stories to share with us all, what he can share. But you're right, Ken. Elon Musk he wasn't hired to be our moral leader. He was hired to uncover fraud. And you know what? Elon Musk, like Reagan, has always said that his greatest skill is delegating. And he said that he hires smart people to do the smart jobs. And that's exactly what he's done with the Department of Government Efficiency. He has hired the smart people to do the smart jobs. And what Elon Musk is doing is he is uncovering multitudes of fraud. And what the left, they're scared to hear the argument of where are the arrests? That's what they're scared of. Here we are. We always want accountability. We're always screaming from the rooftops about accountability. Let's make people accountable. Let's arrest people for finally doing what they're doing. And no one wants to talk about that. Once we start uncovering, and then we already know about the money, excuse me, the monetary amount of the fraud. We already know about this. Look at those billions of dollars at HUD that were just misplaced in an account. Look at all the money that's gone out to different countries for foreign aid. And we're going to talk about that too today. The kickbacks, it's all kickbacks. How many people got wealthy off the war in Ukraine? How many people got wealthy off the war in Syria or the war in Iraq or the war in Afghanistan? And we could go all the way back, couldn't we? How many people got wealthy on war that killed millions of people, including our own troops? American lives lost, here and overseas due to different types of war scenarios. And where are the arrests? That's what I want to know. Who is going to come around and arrest these people? And who's going to ask for the money back? I've said this before. Anyone in Congress, I don't care if they're Republican. I don't care if they're Democrat. I don't care if they're my favorite people, even if it would be Donald Trump. If we find out that any of these people received their kickback, when we find out how much money they received, they need to pay it back or they need to go to prison. End of story. But the left, they don't want to talk about arrests. They don't want accountability. They want accountability for us. We're still the worst people, worst form of people because of J6, right? They didn't have any problem throwing those folks in jail. And they're still calling them cop killers when not a single police officer was injured or died. I mean, not even one. And the one police officer that testified that they said was oh so badly injured, he testified that no, he actually was not injured. It had nothing to do with the people protesting. But yet they continue to insist. And these people need to go to prison. Allison's, what about how much gold? Wait until we find out how much gold is missing from Fort Knox. Exactly, Allison. And as you know, I've got that on my agenda today. And yes, Tammy, all talk and no action. And if it were us, yes, we would be in jail. I am tired. Congress has been playing the game with the American people for a long time, a really long time, long enough for George Carlin to used to make jokes about it. And, they have protected each other with these kickbacks. And, for the longest time, I would always think, okay, I understand that Democrats are really doing some dumb stuff to hurt Americans. Why aren't Republicans speaking out against it? Well, now we know because Republicans are receiving just as many kickbacks as Democrats are, and they all need to be held accountable. We need to demand accountability. And I don't care if it tears our government up. I don't care if every last person has to step down from Congress. I don't care. We have to get rid of all of these people who've taken kickbacks from us. They stole from us. It's theft. They stole your money. You worked really hard for that money. They stole it for their own personal gratitude. They're living in multi-million dollar homes, driving very expensive cars, taking beautiful vacations, taking lots of time off of work on your dollar, the money you worked for. You worked for that money. It's absolutely insane. Ken says, agreed. What I would love to know is how civil servants are worth tens of millions making civil servant money. I mean, seriously, I want the name of their financial advisors. Well, Ken, their financial advisor is called an omnibus bill because that's where they're getting all their money. All of this money that goes into these omnibus bills ends right back in their pockets. And Robert says, left, right paradigm, uniparty. You got that right. We need to start all over, wipe the slate clean. Let's get rid of them all. How about that? I don't even care. Let's get rid of the good ones too. Because how do we know what they're doing? Let's just start over. New rules, new team, people who actually want. How about some citizens? How about citizens work for Congress? People like you and I. We become the new Congress people without kickbacks. Maybe without even a salary. We'll just do it for free. Jay says insider trading. Absolutely insider trading. Absolutely insider trading. I'm waiting to see some of these people go to jail. But you know what? They're so scared. They're so scared of us uncovering all the fraud, of Doge uncovering all the fraudulent activity, that they're going to do anything they can to get rid of Elon Musk. Anything they can. And then once they get rid of Elon Musk, then you know what? Then they're going to refocus and they're going to start back up on Donald Trump once again. And then they're going to come after Donald Trump's family. There's a lot of people out there who believe, and I believe people with some very good information, that Don Jr. is going to be running for presidency in the next election. And they're, apparently getting him ready, prepared, for that move. And I'll tell you, Democrats know. If I know, Democrats know. So that means they're going to start their dirty little deeds very soon if they haven't already. And Jay says there needs to be major reforms. Yes, we have to wipe the slate clean, get rid of them all. There's a couple of Republican folks in Congress, not many, that I like, not many. And even the ones I like, I would be fine to see them go for the greater good of the country. Let's just start fresh, get rid of them all. Now that Doge is at the IRS, I want to see the tax returns of every single member of Congress. I want to know where every single penny came from, all of it. Every time we sent money to Ukraine, who got a little piece of that? I want to know the names and I want to know how much money they had. And I can guarantee you that all of those folks on the right side of Congress, they received kickbacks too. Don't think they didn't. They're all playing the game. Every last one of them, they're all playing the game. And, Donald Trump, of course, he's working on solutions. And of course, he's being stopped by federal judges every step of the way, state judges, federal judges. And, he's fighting back. ICE and the DHS, they have overridden these sanctuary cities. They have overridden the mayors, the law enforcement. No longer are we going to cater to sanctuary cities. ICE and the DHS have said, all right, sanctuary cities, don't care. We don't care that you are providing, a safe place for illegals. We don't care. We're coming into your city. We're making arrests. Whether you like it or not, you cannot block us. And I was kind of surprised to read that Gavin Newsom, of course, California Governor Gavin Newsom, that he is actually vetoing a bill that keeps ICE from being able to detain people in California prisons. I was really surprised by that. And apparently he has a history of vetoing these bills that tell ICE that they cannot work with the Department of Corrections in the state of California. So I thought that was kind of interesting and a different take than what I expected from Governor Governor Gavin Newsom. Ellen says, when plunder becomes a way of life for a group of people in society over a course of time, they create for themselves legal system that authorizes it and a moral code that glorifies it. They're living there in their own little world, aren't they? All these folks in Congress, some of these people in government positions, and quite honestly, I'm glad to see them go. I'm happy to see all of these jobs eliminated. I really am. I'm happy to see all of these jobs eliminated. We've all said for the longest time, all these people, and we all knew that, you get a job with the government, you can't get fired, they have to do everything this legal process, and they're not going to go through all that. People don't show up for work, they don't do their jobs, and they still get paid, right? There's been instances of people who've been fired and let go from their jobs for a long time, still getting paid. There are people who haven't shown up to work for a really long time and still getting paid. So we've got to cut all this waste out. We have no choice but to do it. How we do it is another story. But man, every single day we are proceeding further getting into it. And Allison, I know you had mentioned gold. I know that Rand Paul has said, recently, he said, let's audit the gold reserves. Really, what do we have in the gold reserves? And I thought that was interesting because, that's been such a big story lately. And, if you go back, and I was going to show you the video, but I'm not going to. But it's just a little bit too long for the show. But back in 1974, and I'll post this probably on my Telegram page later. I don't know if Facebook will allow me to post the video, but I have a video from 1974. And they talk about an article that linked the Rockefeller family to basically stealing the country's gold. And so one of the Rockefellers, his secretary, her name was Louise Boyer. You can take a look at her. Well, Louise Boyer was a whistleblower of her time. And at that time, she said that the Rockefellers sold all of the United States gold to private investors. There was no gold left. And she mysteriously, of course, fell out of her 10-story window in New York City and perished, just 3 days after she gave her statement. So we'll never really know. But she was a secretary of one of the Rockefellers, so she would certainly know. And, back in 1982, Reagan's Gold Commission, it revealed, and this is kind of crazy, it revealed that the U.S. Treasury owns no gold. We have no gold. Do we have gold? I don't know. I would like to see an audit to see if we do have gold. But I've always been under the impression that there is no gold, that we sold all the gold, to private investors, which makes a lot of sense because unfortunately our government in the past has done some really dumb things. And that's probably one of them. But I'm also hearing through some back channels that there's been a lot of shipments of gold coming from London into the United States. And that doesn't really have anything to do with Trump because that started before Trump before he won the election, before he was inaugurated. So I don't know what the deal is with that. If it is true that there's shipments of gold coming in from London, is it U.S. gold? Is there some other transaction going on? We just don't know. And Allison, why is the dollar not backed by gold? Well, I think it will be soon if we have gold to back it by. Maybe that's why our dollar is not backed by gold. Maybe it's because we don't have any. I think that Rand Paul knows exactly what's going on. And I think that that's why we're going to find out exactly what's going on. I think we're going to do an audit of gold reserves. We're going to get to the bottom. Now, what will happen if we find out that we don't have any gold reserves, that we, the United States, have no gold? That's going to put us in a pretty perilous position now, won't it? And of course, Donald Trump, he probably knows the truth. And maybe that's why he's making the deals that he's making. And trust me, he is a deal maker of all deal makers. Joe says a bunch of gold coming in from other countries. And Lori, I saw your comment about your son getting a job at the FAA, but it scrolled past before I could read it. And let's see, I think maybe this was Robert that said this. It's scrolling through. You and I have no power to do anything against a tyrannical government. It takes a large movement of people. MAGA, you got that right. And that's exactly who we are, and it's exactly what we have done. And we've Margie says she wishes Lori's son well, as do I. And so, do we have gold? I can't wait to see the audit. We can't back our dollar in gold if we don't have it. We just can't. We can't go back to a gold reserve if we don't have any gold. So we need that audit. We need to find out what the truth is. Did the Rockefellers really sell it to private investors? Is it hidden somewhere? Is there any gold in Fort Knox? We don't know. Another thing we'll get to the bottom of. But I'll tell you what, a lot of people think it's crazy that Donald Trump wants to take Greenland or that he wants to take Canada. Canada's our 51st state. Now, I'm going to play a video for you, a little video clip here, because this guy explains it a lot better than I can. But we have to, we've been in a stagnant place for a long time in our country where we're not acquiring areas that are rich in minerals. We're not acquiring gold. We're not acquiring any strategic reserves of anything, which is great that we're working with Donald Trump to try to become more self-sufficient. We certainly don't want to do things the Democrat way. When Democrats want something, they just take it, at the expense of all the collateral damage, which is hundreds of thousands to millions of lives. And we've seen that happen in Iraq. We've seen it happen in Afghanistan. We've seen it happen in Syria and Libya. When the Democrats want something, the Democrat regime, they just go in and they take it. They create an excuse, a false flag operation, and they just go in and they take the oil, or they go in and they take the minerals. They don't care how many lives are lost. Now, Donald Trump wants to do things diplomatically. He wants Canada to be our 51st state. He's not going to give up on taking Canada and taking Greenland. He's not going to give up. So we have to start asking, is it going to happen, and why is this happening? And I hope when you see this video clip, you'll understand a little bit better where he comes from. Now, I love Canada. I have a lot of friends who are Canadian. I have nothing but respect for them. And I know they love their country too, even though they have now chosen, mostly people who played hockey in Canada now live here in the United States, but they have chosen to stay here in the United States because they love this country too. And they also, a lot of them hate what's happening in Canada with Trudeau and all of the wokeness and liberalism that's been spreading through Canada. They understand the harm that has caused, their country. And so I still don't know that they would be okay with the United States acquiring Canada, but I haven't asked any of them. Maybe they'd be perfectly fine with it. But I want you to watch this little video clip because this will go over and give you a good idea of how it would be beneficial for us to acquire Canada as our 51st state. And again, this argument is not going to stop because Donald Trump intends to make Canada the 51st state. And we have Trudeau, who is going to be stepping down soon. And so that's going to open a lot of leeway for us, particularly as we continue these negotiations with Russia and with Europe over what's happening in Ukraine. There's a lot going on that all connects together. So take a look at this.
What if Canada
really
became the 51st state of the United States? In this case, the U.S. would significantly expand its territory, become the largest country in the world, overtaking Russia, and stretch across about 80% of North America, which is 13% of all land on Earth. Canada would become the largest U.S. state, and with a GDP of over $2 trillion, it would rank as the third among all states, behind only California and Texas, but ahead of New York. This would boost America's global economic standing and widen its lead over China. Because of Canada's northern territories, the U.S. would also boost its influence in the Arctic by gaining control over the strategically important Northwest Passage. the USA would unlock access to Arctic resources as well as Canada's abundant natural wealth, including one of the world's largest freshwater reserves and about 13% of global oil reserves. It would allow the US to approach Saudi Arabia's level of oil and surpass Russia, Iraq, and Iran. But would it be beneficial to an independent Canada with its 10 unique provinces?
Would it be? I don't know. I don't know if it would be beneficial to Canada. And Rich says, wouldn't Canada have to agree with the United States taking them over? Yes, Rich, we wouldn't take them by force. I don't see us taking them by force. I certainly wouldn't support that. I don't think most Americans would support us taking Canada by force, but I don't think we have to. You know, we subsidize Canada already by, I can't remember, is it $100 million every year, something along those lines? Canada would not do well, you know, if we tariff them. And some we've got Canada in a very, very tough spot right now. Robert says, you would think if we annex Canada, it would be 10 new states and not one. Yeah, I don't know how that would work, Robert, if they would divide that up into states, or if it would just be, hey, that's still Canada, it's its own area, but yet it is annexed into us. And Robert says billions. I'll tell you what, we have Canada in a very tough spot because of their pipeline. Canada's pipeline, their oil pipeline, comes right through the United States. They cannot connect from the east side to the west side to transport petroleum. Their pipeline comes down into the United States and then loops back up into the western portion of Canada. So it goes from east down into the United States, back up through Canada into the west. They have no way to get petroleum from one side of Canada to the other. It's just not possible without the United States. And I don't expect us to cut off that supply, but we could. And that's exactly right, Glenn. A U.S. territory like Puerto Rico or Guam, that's exactly how I would picture it to be if we did acquire Canada. I don't think we would really, they term it the 51st state. I don't think we would call it the 51st state. I think it would be exactly like Glenn says, it would be a U.S. territory. And, you know, when I first heard about this, I was kind of against it. But the more I hear it, just like the video that I just played for you all, I think that it's something that we need to do. If we want to go up against BRICS has become very powerful. Europe is turning against us. And, you know, Europe was only our ally when Democrats were in charge. Now that the Democrat regime is gone and will probably be forever gone, because some of these people are probably end up in Gitmo, you know, soon enough. And Europe is no longer our ally. They're not even hiding that fact. They are not our ally. And we're going to find that out very quickly when the situation comes down with Ukraine and Britain, you know, British troops heading over to Ukraine as peacekeepers. And we're going to find out exactly where the alliances lie. But I know that Donald Trump would like to move away from NATO. I know he obviously already ended our relationship with the UN and some other different organizations that connected us to Europe. And I think that we, the United States, we have to realize who are our friends. We don't have any friends. We, the United States, we don't have any friends. We just don't. You know, Canada is not our friend. Europe, they're not our friends. BRICS countries, they're not our friends. And BRICS has become such a powerful adversary. And, you know, I don't even like to use the word adversary. I don't like to look at Russia, you know, or China, I feel is our adversary. I don't like to look at Russia as an adversary. But I know that their BRICS is climbing fast. They have all these new countries joining. Right now, they control more of the world's population than the G7 does, more than NATO does. They control more of the world's GDP, and they're becoming very powerful. And the only way we're ever going to be able to stand up and remain as a superpower in this world is for us to acquire Canada. There's no other way. There is absolutely no other way. And so I see that it's absolutely necessary for us to retain our power. Otherwise, BRICS is going to continue to gain control, and they're at some point going to be unstoppable. And you know what's going to happen next? They're going to take us over. So we can either stand up, become self-sustaining, and become the once powerful nation we once were, or we're going to become a republic under Russia. You know, I can see that happening. And Glenn says Trump is going to take BRICS to their knees. I don't know, Glenn. I don't know about that. You know, BRICS is a very powerful entity. as United States, as we stand alone against BRICS, it's a very powerful entity. Europe, we can't really count them, can we? Look at Germany. Their parliament just fell apart. The AfD, the Conservative Party in Germany, is taking over. Germany has gotten so bad that actually it was J.D. Vance actually was just speaking out about Germany this past weekend, talking about how in Germany right now, if people go on social media and they speak out, for their conservative values, they're sending the police to their homes and raiding their homes and arresting these people. The same thing has been happening in Europe. Those people, they're siphoning money from us. Europe siphons money from us. We are their big brother protector. And then they turn against us. And we're going to see that more and more as the days come. And, especially in this next week, because we have Jay says BRICS doesn't have a Trump. Well, BRICS has a Putin. And I think Putin and Trump are very similar people. And I don't know if you'll agree with me on that, but I do think that Trump and Putin are very similar people. Putin has never ruled Russia as a communist country. The country was already free from communism by the time he took over. Putin instills traditional Christian values throughout Russia. They don't allow illegals to enter their country. They don't allow terrorism. Which kind of reminds me of Trump. Putin made that statement that time. He said, "Hey, terrorists, if you come into my country and you commit an act of terror, well, guess what? I'm going to come after you and your entire family. I will murder you and your entire family if you commit an act of terrorism in the country of Russia." And he meant it. And Putin is very unpredictable, very much in the way that Donald Trump is. Remember, for months now, we're all like, gosh, is Putin going to launch a nuclear weapon on us? We just don't know. We're scared of Russia because Putin is unpredictable, just like Trump. Trump is unpredictable, and that's what makes him such a great negotiator. And that's why we're really heading into a situation this week. Glenn says, India is already conceding and Russia will rescind as part of Ukraine peace deal. Glenn, that's exactly what I'm going to talk about. And Margie says, don't like one world order. No, I don't like one world order either. We need to break things up a little bit. We, the United States, we have no friends. We really don't. We have no friends. We stand alone. So we need to become more powerful alone. And the only way to do that is to annex Canada and potentially Greenland, but Canada for sure. If we can get Canada, then we'll for sure get Greenland. So, keep that in mind. But we're going to see exactly what's taking place with Europe in the coming days. Because as most of you know, Zelensky's done. This situation in Ukraine is over. Zelensky will no longer have a seat at the table. He already pretty much doesn't. We know that Donald Trump is meeting with Putin in Saudi Arabia. I am guessing that they chose Saudi Arabia because that's a safe place for both of them. Neither one of them are going to be harmed in Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Arabian government will make sure that doesn't happen. Now, on the flip side of that, Europe, they're having their own meeting. They're conducting a summit. Zelensky not invited to either of these meetings. Trump did not invite Zelensky, or nor did Putin, to the meeting that they're having in Saudi Arabia. Europe is convening that special summit with all the European leaders. They didn't invite Zelensky to the meeting. And what they're going to decide is is Europe going to stand with us or are they going to stand against us? Donald Trump is working out a deal with Russia. And I told you guys the other day how that deal came to be. And that is that Donald Trump played them. I mean, he really did. He played Zelensky in particular. And U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was in Ukraine. He was sitting across the table from Zelensky. He had a deal in his hand. Zelensky's been trying to sell us his minerals for a very long time, since day one, actually. And since he didn't have any communication directly with Trump, he announced it very publicly to Trump that, hey, I'll sell you the rights to all of our minerals if you help us defeat Russia. So here we have Scott Bessent sitting across the table from Zelensky with the paperwork. All Zelensky has to do is sign it, and he has our support. And then we will then obtain his minerals, and we will support him in the fight against Russia. In the meantime, Donald Trump on the phone with Putin at the exact same time, it's all going on simultaneously, and Donald Trump is talking to Putin about a peace deal. And what can we do for you, Vladimir Putin? How do we create peace? Well, then Trump finds out, well, Zelensky wouldn't sign the deal. He would not sign over the mineral rights that he had promised. Trump said, end of story. Sorry, Zelensky, you're out, Putin's in, and now we're going to make a deal with Putin. And the problem with that is that Europe, they don't want that to happen. They have as many dirty little secrets over in Ukraine as we do. And, think of the things that are going to come out over there. We have a situation of their organ harvesting. And we haven't even talked about this yet on this show. We've talked about organ harvesting in Ukraine, but something that I've not talked about because it's heartbreaking to me, it's very difficult to talk about, is what's happening to Ukrainian troops. Ukrainian troops who are getting injured in battle, they're brought back and their organs are harvested and sold to the highest bidder. Now, you can take that for what you want. You can do some research on your own, but that is exactly what's happening. And a lot of those organs are going to European countries. And Europe doesn't want people to know that. They don't want to know about their biolabs. They want to keep their dirty little secrets secret in Ukraine as much as Democrats do. So therefore, Europe is trying to decide, well, hey, what are we going to do? The United States is making a peace deal. Europe, they can't support Ukraine against Russia. There's no way. We were the one giving them all the money, and they know that gravy train has ended. So now Europe has to decide, are they going to continue and push on to support Ukraine, or are they going to stand with us and try to create peace with Putin? Well, I think we know that Europe is never going to stand with Putin and create peace in Ukraine. That's never going to happen. So now they're talking about sending British troops on the ground over to Ukraine. Now, I think we all know what that's going to look like, don't we? If Europe sends British troops to Ukraine and anything funny happens, they get a little out of line, and then Russia ends up attacking Ukraine to however that might look, and some of these British troops, or they're calling it a peacekeeping mission, end up injured or killed, what's going to happen? What is Europe going to do then? Are they going to retaliate? Are they going to get into a full-blown war over this? Them sending British troops into Ukraine is a very dangerous situation. It is something that they absolutely should not do, but they are going to do anything they can to protect their assets in Ukraine. So we're going to find out a lot in the coming days. Is Europe with us or are they against us? I think we're going to find out that they are against us. They are not our friends. They were the friends of the Democrat regime. They are not our friends. And we saw that already with Greenland. Remember when Donald Trump was talking about annexing Greenland? Well, what happened? NATO said, well, Donald Trump, if you decide you want to go after Greenland, we're going to deploy NATO troops to Greenland. They want NATO to fight against the United States. That was very clear in what was stated by the president of NATO. So we'll see how all this goes. Joe says, we own more Bitcoin than anyone. I don't know if we own more Bitcoin than China. I think Trump will tie the dollars to Bitcoin, pay off the debt. I don't know. I don't know about that. We'll see. And then Joe says, I think Putin and I'm thinking you mean China are both with Trump against the deep state, who has a stronghold on many nations around the world. I think so. Margie says, we have minerals. Margie, we have an amount of minerals, but the problem is our minerals. I mean, do we want to take over and kick people off their lands to get to the minerals we have in this country? It's not that we don't have minerals. It's that what do we have to do to get them? Do we have to look a perfect example? Look at Hillary Clinton. Back when Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State, she worked with the Bureau of Land Management. Some of you probably remember what happened with the Bundys at the Malheur Reservation and the ranch and all of the different ranchers that were being kicked off of their land. Well, what happened is old Hillary had a map of the minerals that are under the entire country. She knew exactly where all the minerals were. And her plan was for the Bureau of Land Management to bully these people off of their properties at any means necessary so that she could go in and make sure that they mined under those ranches. That's what that whole situation was about. It was about mining. So the problem is here in the United States, it's not that we don't have minerals. It's that we have a lot of land that is owned by individuals. It's lived on by people. And the way to get to those minerals would be to make people move away from their land. Look at the situation in North Carolina. A lot of people think that the situation after Helene was to get to the minerals. Donald Trump, by the way, in North Carolina, helping a lot with North Carolina, here in the past couple of weeks. And so our minerals here just really aren't that accessible. And we've got to do what we can to obtain it. And we don't really have a lot of the rare earth minerals needed for our military and to create our military equipment. That's something we really just don't have here. And China, of course, has an abundance of that, which is why we probably need to side up to China a little bit more. And I know we're getting ready to build a facility in California for rare earth minerals, but it's not soon enough. We need it right now. We need it right now because we know that Joe Biden gave away everything we have. So we have very little time to start building up our resources because we're not prepared for war. If somebody declared war on us today, we wouldn't be ready. We'd be in a lot of trouble. So we'll see how things play out. There's a lot taking place. Joe says, why can't the landowners sell their own minerals? Well, Joe, I don't know about you. I know this property here that I live at. I know when we signed the deed, it said that the minerals don't come with it. Any type of prospecting or this used to be a mine, by the way, where my house is used to be a mine back in the day, a gold mine, as a matter of fact. And so they very clearly stated, and it's not just here. The house I had before had similar documents that came with the house that said that, any type of minerals or oil or anything else found on the property, you don't have rights to that. And I don't know if that happens with all properties, but I think it probably does, where you don't have the rights to the minerals or the oil or other things that's on your property. And that's because like I've always said, and I still believe to be true, that you're just leasing your property from the government. You don't actually own it. Your property is not yours to own. You're leasing it. And you're doing that through paying taxes and personal property taxes and other abatement fees and all of that type of stuff. But most people do not have access to any of their minerals on their own property. And it's highly unfortunate. And Joe says, yes, I know it says that, but isn't it unconstitutional? Depends on how you look at it. Again, we're just leasing from the government. It's not really ours. So get it out of your mind that you own anything, because we own nothing. We own absolutely nothing. And we have to be happy about it, right? We thought it was coming. We didn't realize we're already in that situation already. So, anyway, I know I'm going to be running out of time because I've been talking so long about different topics. Allison says Greenland may vote to be independent from Denmark, then Greenland will vote to be part of the U.S. I don't know, Allison. I would like to think that, but for the last poll I saw said like 60 to 70% of the residents in Greenland did not want to be part of the United States. There was only a smaller portion that did. Now, of course, I don't believe in polls. Polls are very subjective. And speaking of polls and whether they're subjective, I thought this was kind of funny, this poll that I was just looking at, because I think this was by NBC, and I think it's for Donald Trump's favorability. And, this was probably very difficult for them to report on NBC. And this is what they stated. They said the government's recognition of only two sexes, 63% of Americans agree with Donald Trump that the government should only recognize two sexes. Deporting immigrants here illegally. Let's see here. That are here illegally. I said that very wrong. 60% of Americans agree that we should deport some people who are here in our country illegally. And expanding oil and gas production. 60% of Americans that were polled feel that we absolutely should expand oil and gas productions. 59% of people believe that Trump was right when he declared the emergency at the southern border. I mean, this speaks for us. We know we're the majority. We've always been the majority. Democrats don't want us to know we're the majority, and they try to tell us we're the minority. But in fact, they are the minority. The majority of Americans like what Donald Trump is doing. They agree with his actions. And a lot of people may not agree with some of the things that he does, but overwhelmingly, his policies work. His policies work. And we were just talking about North Carolina, and I had a little clip here from a man in North Carolina. Remember when Joe Biden sent out FEMA and they didn't want to help people who were conservatives. They didn't want to put too much labor into anything. People would go by the FEMA camp. They say, well, there's a lot of people there, but none of them are doing anything. And then they try to give everybody $750, only people who owned homes. If you lived in North Carolina and you were a renter, even if you lost everything, you didn't get anything from FEMA. You had to own a home. And then we had the Amish and the Mennonites come out. Remember, they built all those tiny homes. And then the local government there and FEMA, they said, oh, sorry, they're not up to code. You can't actually live in those homes. Over 100 little tiny homes that were built for these people. You can sleep in a tent on your property in the cold, but you cannot live in a tiny home built by the Amish and the Mennonite. It doesn't come up to code. Make some sense of that for me, will you? So take a look. Here's a little bit of update on North Carolina and where it stands right
Kevin
now.
Halford lost his home in the flood. We met him at a mobile soup kitchen supported wholly by the people in the community.
I spent 4 hours during the flood underneath the overpass up here. Once it stopped, I was able to get out, saw that the river down here had taken over the main road.
There have been a lot of donations and a lot of help from individuals, but as far as what you expected from the state or the federal government, where does that fall?
In the beginning, it was like hardly existent, and now it seems to be getting better, and I thank Trump for that.
Within weeks of the storm, then candidate Trump made a stop and a promise.
I will support and totally complete the rebuilding of every region and town and city that was devastated by the hurricane, and I will slash through every bureaucratic barrier that you're having already and having problems with right now, I understand pretty badly.
Mike Stewart was there that day, the man behind Trump in the white hat.
Everything's gone.
It was over here.
He owns a storage shed business that washed away in the flood.
Oh, this is where the storage lot was, right there. There's
Then candidate Trump, he said that if he were put back in the White House, that he would help. He would fix this.
Yeah.
What did you make of those comments at the time?
I stood face to face with him and was able to look him in the eyes and try to get a sense of sincerity, whether he was for real or whether he was a politician talking. And my sense was he was for real. He was the only one that had the dust from Swannanoa on his shoes. But he made the promise, if I get elected, I will be back and we'll get this area taken care of.
In January, just days after the inauguration, President Trump returned.
Today, here I am to deliver on that promise, and we have a lot of things in mind, and we're getting the Army Corps of Engineers all set. You need your riverbanks fixed, you need a lot of roads fixed, and we're going to get it done in rapid time.
And just days ago, the sound of progress. The Army Corps of Engineers, along with contractors and county crews, cleaning roadsides and removing splintered trees and debris from the Swannanoa River. Even the cab of an 18-wheeler is finally out of the water.
The executive order told us to go faster. We heard it loud and clear. The governor told
Colonel
us to go
Brad
faster.
Morgan is with the Army Corps of Engineers.
Within the last week or so, we've really been able to clear a lot of bottlenecks to get a lot of the permitting and a lot of the other coordination finalized, and that's enabled us to get started.
They've gotten started. They're moving faster, all at the request of Donald Trump. The man went back. He held his word. I think he's held his word on every issue, every single issue, everything. At this point, Donald Trump said he was going to do it. He has done it. He is doing it. And Anna Paulina, of course, Anna Paulina Luna in Florida, of course, taking over the Epstein list and some of the other disclosures that we're hoping to see, because the Epstein list is number one on my mind. It really is. I want to see those names. I want to know what's going on. We're already finding about Doge, and here we're talking about FEMA. Would they find out that FEMA paid $60 million to house illegals in luxury apartment buildings? And then you have these people here in North Carolina who right now to this day just got some type of livable housing arrangements because of Donald Trump. Unbelievable. That happened on September 27th, I believe it was, because I was there in North Carolina in the Blue Ridge Mountains when Helene came through. I was there. I had to evacuate twice. I was there. I saw it firsthand. Not everything that these people saw, but I saw the storm come through. I saw what was happening. I saw the trees coming down around us. And these people have waited all this time to get help. It is absolutely unbelievable that this could even be happening. But thank God for Trump, right? Thank God for these policies. And it's so crazy to me that Democrats are completely unglued, having complete meltdowns over everything Donald Trump is doing. All of these policies is having complete meltdowns. And, some of the things that people I'm hearing from different people are like, oh, well, you said, USAID, however you say it, I call it you said. Some people say USAID. You said, oh, they're taking money away from children. They're taking funding away. They're trying to cut Medicare. They're cutting Social Security. That's propaganda and lies. It's propaganda and lies. What Trump has done is he has stopped some of the funding going to these different countries. Sudan, as an example. I've got a little clip here. I'm only going to play a second of this clip because there's too many things to talk about in so little time. But I'm going to play this. I hope this is the right clip. I've got a couple of different ones here. I think this is right. And so I'm just going to play a couple seconds of this so you can get a general idea of what's going on here. And then we're going to talk about why this isn't what it looks like it
foreign
is.
aid used to look like in Sudan. Aid agencies say the country is suffering from the world's biggest humanitarian crisis because of a civil war that's lasted for almost 2 years. But it's been very difficult to get aid into some of the most hard-hit areas because of intense fighting and a deliberate effort by both sides in the conflict to block aid deliveries, essentially using food as a weapon of war. The World Food Program couldn't reach a besieged area of the capital Khartoum until December, which was almost 20 months into the conflict, and even then they had to rely on a local network of volunteers to distribute the aid. That network of emergency response rooms, or ERRs, has organized across the country to deliver food, medicine, and other basic supplies to areas that other agencies just can't reach. But now, much of that network has had to shut down. That's because 75% of their funding came from USAID, and Trump's administration froze that foreign assistance after he took office. Before Trump's order,
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. This was posted by NBC. I just can't talk today. NBC. And NBC posted this because Donald Trump took away food from the children. Okay, well, let's talk about this area that they're talking about, Khartoum. Well, I'll tell you what, that is a terror-held area. There are a lot of terrorists in that area. The reason why these people don't have food is because the terrorists won't feed them. They won't give them food. They don't allow these people to eat. It is, are we supposed to be responsible for everything that happens in the world? I certainly don't mind spending some tax dollars to feed starving children in another country. But at the same time, here we have a situation where you said, let's say, just as an example, I'm just going to throw this number out there, that they have $100 million they want to send out to Sudan to feed these communities, okay, war-torn communities where these people, these terrorists are killing farmers. There is a white genocide, as a matter of fact, going on right there, right now. They're killing all the white people, chasing them away from their properties. We've talked about it before. And so these people, we send the funding to these same people, the same people who are keeping these people oppressed, who are killing these people, who are keeping these people from having food, from eating, from having medical care. We have to give the money to the leaders of these terror groups. We can't just give it to the people. They don't allow us to do that. They don't say, okay, United States, come on in, come bring your food, come bring your medical services, and we'll let you in. It doesn't work that way. They use it against the people, and they use it against us. What happens is you said we'll fund the terror group, and then because they fund the terror group, we're able to get a little bit of aid in. But the amount of food and supplies we get into these people is minimal because the terror groups take most of everything that we have. And Donald Trump isn't saying that we're not going to fund poor children in other countries. That's not what he's saying. He's not saying we're not going to dig wells for clean water in other countries. He's not saying that. He's saying, let's stop the funding. Let's figure out where is this funding going. And when the funding is going to a terror organization, how can we stop that funding to the terror organization and get it to the people directly? He did the same thing with the Palestinian people in his last term. In the same situation, Democrats were funding Hamas. Hamas was taking that aid and distributing it as they saw fit, but it was coming through them first, and we had to pay them a lot of money in order for them to distribute aid to the people. So the same thing is happening all over the world, and a lot of people don't see it for what it is. And the same thing's happening in Sudan. And the only thing Donald Trump is saying is, how can we find a better way? He did that with the people of Palestinians in his last term. He found a better way. He said, okay, we are not giving this money to Hamas. We're not giving the supplies to Hamas. We're not giving the food to Hamas. We're going to find a way to get it directly to the people. And he did. He found a way. He stopped funding Hamas. And of course, Joe Biden picked that right back up where Trump left off and started funding Hamas again. but it's the same thing. So all of these government programs that have stopped through USAID, where we've said, okay, we're going to stop the funding, it is because we're funding terrorism. We're funding criminal organizations. It has to stop. We can find a better way to help the people who really need help. That's all that's happening. No one is going to stop feeding the poor children. No one's going to stop the clean drinking water. We're going to find a better way to do it. But of course, you can't talk to Democrats about that. They don't believe it. They think that we just want to stop all funding to all people. They think we're going to cut off Medicaid. We're going to stop food stamps. We're going to stop all of these different programs that help people who need it the most. That's not true. We're just going to find better ways of doing it. The people of Sudan will be so much better off when we stop messing in their local politics, when we start helping the people and not the people who've led to them being in this position. Look at Yemen. Yemen, there's 250,000 people starved to death in Yemen. Why? Because we started bombing the Houthis. That's why. We in Saudi Arabia, we are personally responsible for what happens over there. And are we feeding the people, in Yemen? No, we don't care if they starve. It's just a crazy situation in this world. One last thing, two last things I want to throw out there, you guys. Eggs, as we know, egg prices right now, 200% up. You believe that? Egg prices have increased by 200%. There's a lot of areas where people are saying they can't even find eggs. And why? Because what has happened? Because avian flu, millions of chickens all across the country being euthanized. And so Donald Trump is trying to find a solution for the egg problem, the chicken problem. And I don't know if I agree with the solution or not. I'm going to let you guys hear it for yourself. Anytime I hear medication and there's other ways of doing things, I start thinking, okay, do you want the chickens to be cold or do we want to medicate them? And then are we going to eat the eggs of medicated chickens? Can the chickens recover? What's the process of recovering? And so on. So I'm going to let you guys hear this for yourself and you can decide for yourself what you think.
Just went to the grocery store. I shopped for our family in part because I love to look at prices. And there were no eggs at the store yesterday, just a few. And so that happened because they killed all the chickens. And so what we need to do is have better ways with biosecurity and medication and so on to make sure that the perimeter doesn't have to kill the chickens. We have a better, smarter perimeter. And so having a smart perimeter is what we're working on. And we're finalizing the ideas about how to do that with the best scientists in government. And that's the kind of thing that should have happened a year ago. And if it had, then egg prices would be a lot better than they are now. But the avian flu is a real thing. And by the way, it's spread mostly by ducks and geese. And so think about it. They're killing chickens to stop the spread, but chickens don't really fly. The spread is happening from the geese and the ducks. And so why does it make any sense to have a big perimeter of dead chickens when it's the ducks and the geese that are spreading it?
Well, the department.
So think about that. What does that look like? I don't know what they mean by a perimeter, because we've had instances where there was a chicken facility that had over 1 million chickens. They had to euthanize all the chickens. Somehow avian flu made it into the chicken pen. I don't know how, over 1 million chickens allegedly became infected. That doesn't mean they really were. There might've been one chicken infected and they kind of jumped the gun. I don't know what it means by securing the perimeter because avian flu is making its way into these processing plants. There's no ducks or geese around. So how is this happening? How is it happening? Is it a situation where it's tampering? Did somebody bring it in with intent? Is it airborne? How are these chickens that are inside? And the particular facility I'm talking about, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. It's an indoor facility. These are not pasture-raised chickens. This is an indoor chicken facility where they are raising chickens for eggs. They're kept in a very tight facility and not humane by any means. But then all of a sudden, they have avian flu. How did they get avian flu in an indoor facility? Chickens that have no contact with other birds, certainly not ducks or geese. How are these chickens obtaining avian flu? And of course, they came in, they culled the entire 1 million plus chickens. And we've had, I think the last number I read was like 25 million chickens in the United States have been culled, euthanized due to avian flu concerns. I know, and if avian flu is in your neighborhood, let's say somebody 20 miles from you finds avian flu in their flock. If the government knows you have chickens, they're coming after your chickens too. Any chickens within the 30-mile radius will be called euthanized. So, is that the answer? I don't know. I just don't know what the answer is. I don't understand what the perimeter means. Like they've got to establish this biosecurity perimeter. And I don't know what they mean by medication. Do they mean that if there's a sign of avian flu, you're going to medicate the chickens to hopefully they'll withstand the flu? Is it a situation where they're going to vaccinate chickens or give some type of preventative medication to where the chickens can't, obtain the avian flu? I don't know. I would like to know a little bit more about this and what their plan is, because I just don't know what to think. We cannot continue to call all these chickens. I also think the whole story about avian flu is so overblown that it's absolutely insane, completely overblown. How many people actually get sick from avian flu? Is the solution really, as bad as the problem? I think there's a woman right now, maybe in Montana, who's hospitalized with avian flu. It's very rare for humans to become infected with avian flu, very rare. I don't think we need to be culling these chickens, and I don't think we need to be vaccinating them or talking about biosecurity perimeters or talking about medications. I think that it's all just a giant overreaction. Now, I'm not a doctor, just my opinion. And so the last thing I want to talk about today, because I know we don't have much time, I started late with some technical issues, and so of course I'm running a little bit late today. But another thing, I keep calling them MSNBC. NBC, kind of the same thing. NBC has been really coming hard for us. They hate Donald Trump. They hate Elon Musk. And of course, they hate all of the Donald Trump policies. There's nothing fair in their reporting. Well, last I checked, it was illegal to hire people who are in this country illegally, right? It is against the law to hire people in this country who do not have authorization to work. I own a company. If I hired somebody who came into our country illegally, they're not a United States citizen, I would get in a lot of trouble. I'd probably end up fined, maybe in jail. I have to fill out paperwork. And some of that paperwork I have to fill out, the I-9 form, I have to prove that this person is an American citizen before I can hire them. So how is it that we promote companies to hire illegals? Why is it the Department of Justice under Joe Biden told companies, if you don't hire illegals, we're going to investigate you. We're going to fine you. We're going to close you down. I mean, it's just a mad world we live in. And, we've talked on this show before about farming and, will deportations affect farming? So I'm going to have you take a look at this short video clip here. It's about 2 minutes long about farming, about illegals, and then we're going to talk about it for a couple of minutes.
Down this road in Waumondy, Wisconsin, population 500, lies John Rosno's farm. He's a fifth-generation farmer who owns more than 900 acres and more than 600 dairy cows.
It takes one person for every 40, 45 cows.
And who is doing all of this work?
I would say about 90% is done by immigrants.
Immigrants like Kevin, who was born in central Mexico and crossed the U.S. border illegally when he was 18. Now 21, Kevin is among the 11 million undocumented migrants living in the U.S. More than 10,000 of them work on Wisconsin dairy farms.
What kind of work do you do here on the farm? ¿Qué trabajo haces aquí en la granja?
Alimentar y también limpiar los corrales.
You feed the cows and you clean the barns too.
Kevin, who did not provide his last name during our interview, says he often works 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, sometimes starting as early as 3 a.m. But the pay is better than back home.
Does your family depend on your salary here in the U.S.?
My mother and my siblings, of course. But since I have my dad here, he also sends some money. Nationally, more than half the workers in the dairy industry are undocumented. Like Kevin, many leave behind loved ones for wages that are below what American workers get.
Some people would be saying that you could be right now hiring American workers to do this job, and that the only reason you're not doing that is because you can pay immigrants less. How would you respond to that?
If I hired Americans to do the work, I would have to pay probably about $100,000 a year per person, and they would only work 40, 50 hours a week. I would be out of business within 6 months. I couldn't afford it. If the price of milk was, or like a gallon of milk cost $10 in the store, then I could probably do that.
The new administration is already following through on its promise to deport the undocumented.
What would happen to your farm and to your business if they are all sent back to their home country?
If that would happen, I'm out of business. And it wouldn't take long.
Rosno fears the future. Kevin does not. 4 years ago, when he was president, he said, "I am going to deport everyone," but it never happened. Sometimes we would watch the news and we would see that a family was deported, and we were scared to go out and buy groceries. But I have not felt fear since then.
Well, he probably should feel fear because Donald Trump means business this time around. And while we might still be in phase one, deporting criminals only at this point, and we things have slowed down a little bit because we're out of beds. Once we secure some more beds, we're going to be continuing to deport criminals. And according to Tom Oman, we will be deporting all illegals, whether they are criminals or not. They are going to start deporting all people who are here in this country illegally. Now, I also worry about the dairy industry. I worry about a lot of industries, but I have mixed feelings about this, or do I even have mixed feelings? The way I see it is that we're not doing a service to these people. This guy that was featured, and by the way, it's CBS, not NBC. That's my fault. The man that was featured here on this CBS little clip, here he is. He's in this country illegally. He shouldn't be here. He has no authorization to work. I can guarantee you whatever wages he earns, he's sending back to his family in Mexico. He's not spending those wages here in our country. But isn't it unfair to him that he is doing all of this work, working very hard, probably for about $5 an hour, I would guess, maybe less even. There is no way this man's obviously making minimum wage. And from what I understand, people I've talked to, what these illegals are typically paid is about $4 or $5 an hour. Think about that. So to me, that's called slavery. That's called slavery. This man is being forced to work. Well, he's not being forced, but he's working long hours, longer than a 40 to 50 hour week. Clearly, that's what the farmer said, right? If he hired Americans, they would only work 40 or 50 hours a week, right? But this guy is putting in much longer days, probably not taking any days off, getting paid very minimal wages, no benefits. This farmer is taking advantage of this person. And yes, the farmer's right. If he didn't have these people, if he had to pay Americans American wages, he would be out of business. We'd be paying, $10, $11 for a gallon of milk. Well, at my grocery store, milk is already at about $6, $7 a gallon if you get the good stuff, Prairie Farms. Now you can get generic milk for about $4 a gallon. But if you want to get Prairie Farms, it's like $6.97. We're not that far off from paying $10 for a gallon of milk. I think there are ways in which we can cut the cost of milk and still hire Americans. Now, some people might want to say, well, no Americans would do these jobs. Well, maybe if they paid them a good wage, they would. I don't even think that these industries even try. And of course we have a lot of Americans, who aren't working, who should be working. Now we have an awful lot of government employees, right, who were just terminated. They need some jobs. How about we send them over to the Wisconsin dairy farm and they can take up dairy farming with this guy, replace the folks that are being deported. It's a tough situation. The Hispanic, Latino people, overwhelmingly, I think they're really good people. They're conservative, they're hardworking people, they're family-oriented people. But the problem is they're still here in our country illegally. They're not adding to our economy. They're sending their money home. They're not spending it here. And just as my farmer friends all have daughters, they are praying their girls marry a man willing to work on a farm. Those young men are hard to find because farming is real work, like most people have no clue. Oh, I agree, Joe. I agree. And that's part of the problem. And I know people don't like me to say it, but largely Americans are kind of lazy. Not all Americans, but a lot of Americans. They did an experiment quite some time ago where they took some college students and took them to the farm and they said, oh, why don't let's work the farm for the day. And of course they couldn't do it. They weren't geared to do it. My stepfather worked on his family's farm, when he was growing up. And I have my own little mini farm here with my chickens and my very big garden. And it's a lot of work. There's no question about it. It's a lot of work. But we Americans, we have to find a way to get back to work at the farms, to pick up those jobs, even if we're doing it on a very voluntary basis, just to help these farmers out, because overall it helps the community in general, not just that farmer. We have to find ways to be self-sufficient within our own country. We cannot count on people who are here illegally to work at our farms. I think it's so crazy to me that Democrats on one side of their mouth can say, oh, we can't deport these people. Our economy depends on them. They need the jobs and we need them. Then pay them a livable wage. How about that? These people are hardworking. They're good people. Pay them a livable wage. Because trust me, the MS-13 gang members, the Tren de Aragua gang members, those guys, the criminals, they're not working on these farms. These are probably good people, but they're here illegally. They've committed a crime by entering our country illegally. They are working on this farm illegally. This man who owns the dairy farm has hired them illegally. You cannot hire people who aren't authorized to work in the United States. And we're not doing these workers any favors. This is hard labor. Can you imagine working in the field all day for $5 an hour, 12, 13, 14 hours a day, every day with no break? No, I can't imagine. And it has to stop. It really does. I don't know what the solution is. I really don't. I wish I did. I don't know what the solution is, but there is a solution. And maybe we need to subsidize farmers a little bit more. Maybe all that money that you said is spending to keep the illegals, just think about that. We were talking about FEMA earlier, how FEMA spent, what was it, $59 million to house illegals in these luxury apartments. What if we continue to deport the illegals, including the migrant farm workers, and instead we take that $59 million and give it to the farmers? Wouldn't that, be a little bit of a solution? Pay people a livable wage to go out and work at the farms. And you know what? This guy who is probably, again, a good guy, who's in this country illegally doing this hard work, you know what? Let him go back to his home country and then hire him on a work permit to come back and do the work. Pay him a livable wage. Give the guy some benefits. How about that? There's a lot of farms who do it the right way. And when they hire people from outside of this country, what they do, instead of hiring illegals, people who've entered our country illegally, they hire a team of folks from, let's say, Mexico or El Salvador or Guatemala. These people get a work permit. They come to our country legally. They're here for the harvesting season or for the whatever type of crop it is that they've planted. And then when they're done, they go back. They're paid a decent living wage. So how about we go back to that? It's so wrong on so many levels that we have people here in our country illegally, working them like slaves. And that's just perfectly fine. It's the craziest thing. I don't understand it. And Joe says, my dad had to buy a round baler for the hay because we couldn't find anyone to help do the square bales. He was paying almost double. I went around to all the local churches looking for help. Yeah, a friend of mine, his family owns a farm in Canada. He goes back every year and helps bale. The family has to come together. They do all the baling. There are ways. And I think, it starts with, we have to help the farmers. How about that? If we help the farmers take some of this money that's been spent so fraudulently, what is it that Kennedy said? We have 6.5 million people in this country over the age of 112, some as old as 150, receiving Social Security benefits. Come on. We know that's fraud. Let's take the fraud. Let's give it to the farmers. How about that? And then our food prices will go down. The farmers can pay a more livable wage. They can either hire Americans by paying them a good wage, or they can have these teams of people come over to our country on a work permit. Trust me, there is a solution. There is a solution. I'm not going to be sitting around crying because we're deporting people who are in our country illegally. That guy is an example. He's been here for a number of years. He is still not yet an American citizen. He doesn't even speak English. And I feel bad for the guy. I really do. I feel bad for his family that he's sending money back to. But we've got to stop feeling bad for people. We just have to. It's hard. It's hard for me. I feel so much compassion for these people in our country, but then we work them to death without paying them a legitimate salary, without giving them benefits. I mean, come on, that's not doing them any favor. It's not doing them any favor. So we'll pick this up another day. My time is out. It is time for me to go. I think I covered everything that I wanted to talk about. I know we're in for some crazy weather over the next couple days. I think in my area, the weather is very unpredictable, anywhere from 2 to 6 inches, I've heard. We'll see. Thankfully, I don't have to leave the house for work this week. I'll be working at the house. So that's a good thing. I hope that all of you guys stay warm. We've got a lot to talk about. I will be here every morning this week. I don't see any foreseeable reason why I won't have any shows. Colonel Joe Adams hopefully joining us on Wednesday. You guys saw Ken Lee pop in earlier. He used to be the pilot of Marine One for Reagan and George Bush. So we're going to talk to him at some point. We're going to get Ken Lee on the show. I got a lot of other guests, believe it or not, that I'm working on to bring to the show to talk about all sorts of different topics. So lots of different things going on. We're going to have a lot to talk about this week. We have Putin, of course, and Donald Trump meeting in Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia, to talk about the peace situation between Ukraine and Russia. We have European leaders meeting in a summit, probably deciding whether or not they're going to be our ally or be our enemy. They've got to decide one side or the other. I think in the end of the conversation, they're probably going to decide to be our enemy, but we'll find out. And then we'll see what happens with Canada. You know, is Canada going to become a territory of the United States? And hopefully you guys saw the video that I showed to show exactly why that's beneficial to us here in our country. Either way, I hope you guys have a really good day. I will see you all tomorrow. Stay warm, stay safe out there. And again, I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap.